Dude, I feel so far behind when it comes to faction wars. Hey, what is up guys, this is Cobb and welcome to champs that I would absolutely love to build. One for every faction, well actually a couple for some factions, that are fairly free to play. You can pull them from Ancient Shards during 2x Ancient Shards events without too many problems. And these champs will be a massive help, not just in faction crypts, but also hopefully in other areas of the game as well. These are going to be some must build budget champs, most of them epic, starting off with the Sylvan Watchers. And dude, I think the pick has got to be Creodan the Blue. This guy is just unbelievable in what he does. Goddamn triple hitter with a chance to land freeze on the A1, attack all enemies 2 times on the A2, each hit with a chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn, so unbelievable against waves already, this guy. And on the A3, place a strong increased speed buff on all allies for a couple of turns and bring some 10 meter fill as well. He just kind of does everything, and of course, most importantly, just completely unlocks the hard mode Fire Knight's Castle dungeon. I think as far as damage dealers go, Pan is also worth a mention as well. This is actually a very strong nuker. He does bring that increased attack and increased speed buff on himself before he attacks in with his attack all enemies A2. Pan is a very hard hitter, and so yeah, pretty solid if you're liking damage dealers for Sylvan Watchers. More of an honorable mention though, to be honest. If you already have Creodan or your damage is just good to go in Sylvan Watchers, then good old Renon the Silken, we'll just call her the Silk Lady, is extremely good to go as well. Especially if you missed out on the Estrid fusion, then this gal is great. Brings decreased attack on the A1, brings plus speed and 10 meter fill on the A2, and then of course the Revive a Dead Ally on the A3, which of course is just amazing going into faction wars, where of course you want every champion alive at the end of the stage so that you can get those juicy 3 stars. Yeah, she's an extremely good epic to pick up as well that is fairly accessible. But alas, I think my pick for Sylvan Watchers at the end of the day is probably going to be Creodan. Before we get into the shoutout kin, quick reminder that if you haven't used code GameLeap, then what are you waiting for, man? Get code GameLeap used to get yourself 10 free experience brews, a free energy refill, and 100,000 silver. And if you already use good old code GameLeap, then make sure to share it with your clan mates as well, man. And spread the love. That's code GameLeap, boys. Helps to support the channel too. So, big thanks to anybody who does decide to share this around amongst your buddies. Alright, man. As for the Shadowkin faction, actually, I just want to, as honorable mentions right away, good old Tamor and Sachi, actually, both bring good 10 meter fill. Sachi actually brings an attack all on a A1, and so she can be a good candidate for stun set in faction wars, whereas Tamor brings a decreased attack. I think they're both worth an honorable mention. And dude, we've got some amazing epics here in amongst Shadowkin. Of course, Genbo cannot be in this list. He's not super accessible, right? He's a void epic, and so yeah, void shards much harder to come by. I don't think we can count them for this video, man. My pick is probably just going to be good old Hitatsu. I feel like Hitatsu is just a good at everything style champ. He does a little bit of everything right. Leech on the A1, bit of extra healing, decreased attack debuff, strong version on the A2, albeit with a 75% chance, I think, to land this. Actually, 80% chance, fully booked. And also brings increased defense and a little bit of healing as well on his A3. Also brings a self-cleanse as well, so if he ever gets stunned up or frozen, he will just cleanse that off of himself once every 3 turns. So just a nice little bonus. Hitatsu, I feel like, has helped me out a hell of a lot in Shadowkin faction wars. And I think that's something I'm trying to focus on when covering these champs, right? We're trying to cover champs that fulfill multiple roles, you know? If you're still focusing on 3-starring faction wars, well, you don't want to be 6-starring a champ just to use them in faction wars, just use them in one area of the game, right? You're probably looking for more versatile champs that can do many jobs at once, can help you out against bosses, can help you out maybe in some Doom Tower encounters, and are also decent against waves. Yeah, another amazing shout for good old faction wars is going to be, whoops, not you, good old Burungiri. What an absolute chad he is, mostly because he just brings a crap load of control, right? Provoke chance on the A1, 35% chance bucked up. He brings a stun with a 60% land rate on his A2, which is obviously fantastic against waves. And so yeah, if you're looking for another champ to maybe help out with, you know, control against spiderlings and spider's den or something, and your account is still quite early days, this guy can be a definite consideration. Brings some pretty strong shields and strength and buffs as well on his A3. Good old Burungiri. Definitely worth a shout out. So I'm actually just picking 2 champs per faction here at this rate, but moving on, I'm going to try and blast through these a bit faster. So a couple of mentions with the dwarfs. I mean, Geomancer is like an automatic 6-star, right? Especially if you pull him quite early on, you're going to be using him in clan boss for just ridiculous damage. Hydra, pretty good too. So yeah, I don't really want to touch on Geomancer. specifically for Faction Wars, he's probably not that amazing, you know. Rare Champs, Keza Deep Heart is another honorable mention. Couple of attack alls on his A3 and his A2, so you can put him up in a stun set and you can do an amazing amount of work for you for a Rare Champ. I think my pick for the Dwarf faction is going to be the good old all-rounder, Mr. Grizzled Jarl. Very basic A1, a little bit of heal reduction, not the biggest deal, but he does bring increased defense buff on all allies for a couple turns and block debuffs on his A2. I think that's really solid. And then on the A3 brings strong version, decrease attack rather on all enemies on an attack all, fully bookable up to a 410 cooldown. 100% land rate. Again, I'm mostly just focusing on champs here that are not quite a dime a dozen. You can go any old dwarf nuker, you know, and make them your pick for the dwarf faction of something that you would max out to try and blast your faction wars. But I think Grizzled Jarl, again, he just fills up a couple of roles, brings a couple of very important bits of utility. He's also quite useful into early game clan boss if you're just getting started in there. And of course, Spider's Den as well with the good old block debuff. So I think that Grizzled Jarl will probably be my pick for the dwarfs. Knights Revenant. This one's tough. There's like 5 picks here we could go, man. Maybe even more than that. Sepulchre Sentinel is great. A lot of really good healers in Knights Revenant as well. Sinesha, Doom Priest, Rector Drath, jeez. In fact, if you sign up to Raid using my promo link in the description box down below, man, you'll unlock a free copy of Rector Drath on your account as soon as your account hits level 25. Real S tier support champ here as well. Reviver too to really help get you started. Even Thalesia, I've actually built my Thalesia out, maxed her up. She's great. She does a really good job. She is extremely squishy, is the only drawback with Thalesia. Just under 13k health for a epic champion is kind of crazy. Most epics average around like 16 to 17,000 health, I feel. So Thalesia is very much on the squishy side. Low defense too, but her attack is great. So even though you're going to be using her for the most part, right, for bringing strong version decreased defense, which is awesome. She does also hit very hard as well. So I've actually built out my Thalesia to have like 4 pieces of Slayer gear, and she's like a backup nuker. So she's kind of filling multiple roles for me, and she's definitely a great option. That said, I think my pick for Knights Revenant has got to be... Oh, who am I fooling, man? It's got to be Rector Drath. It just has to be. Just has to be. Not only is she bringing ridiculous amounts of healing, perfect veil buffs as well, which is obviously also great, but also just bringing that revive as well. I mean, it's just gotta be Rector Drath, you know. When it comes to 3-starring faction war stages, the revivers really, you know, you can't say enough about them, and Rector Drath is just too up there to not be the pick. Surely. Next up, we've got the Dark Elves. We're blasting through these kind of quick now. Big shout out to Durandal right off the get-go. Quite a survivable and very efficient damage dealer. Super good nuker if you're looking for a damage dealer with your Dark Elves, and worth building out for that reason alone. Dark Kill is obviously also amazing. Just the fact that he's not only a damage dealer, but Dark Kill also brings not just like the AoE that regular kill is kind of known for on his A2, but also attacks all enemies and has that chance of placing decreased attack debuff for a couple of turns on a 3-turn cooldown. I mean, fully bugged. It's just kind of crazy as hell. And yeah, just plenty of damage, poison damage. The other thing that Kill is known for, you might say, you know, so that Kill is obviously a great pick. I think I want to kind of spotlight a champ that I never see anybody cover, and it's good old Kaiden. So this guy's crazy as hell. Now, if you've already got Dark Kill, then obviously you don't care that much about his A2 because it's also an attack all enemies and the chance to place that strong version of decreased attack. So he kind of loses value a little bit if you're already running a Dark Kill. But if you don't have Dark Kill yet, and you pull Kaiden quite early on, this guy is worth maxing up, man. Decreased attack, he's got a chance to place Provoke on the A1, and most importantly, a double revive and then an increased defense buff on the revived nerds for 1 turn. It's on a 4-turn cooldown on his A3. Dude, this is crazy as hell. Yeah, a very good epic tier revive. That one might be a little bit of a controversial pick, man. Hey, if you disagree with any of these picks, or you've got your own ideas about if you could just pick like one epic champ that's not a void that you could have for helping out at faction wars for every faction, make sure you drop it down below as well, man. Feel free to play along, you know what I'm saying? Alright, man, next up, good old Undead Hordes. You've got a choice of nukers here. Dark Aethel, Dark Elhain. Everybody who knows anything knows that Dark Elhain is far superior. Nobody can convince me otherwise. Yeah, just generally speaking, build Dark Elhain. over Dark Ithel. She just has much more use into countering, you know, freeze-based arena comps and that kind of thing. She's just, generally speaking, more useful into other areas of the game, you know, Frostbiter, things like that. Gorgorab is also definitely worth a mention as well. This is just another reviver champ, and he's extremely good at it. He also brings some turn meter fill and increase attack on his A2. Just a fantastic champ all in all. But I think the champ that I want to spotlight has just got to be Husk, man. It's just gotta be, you know. While you can level up a Gorgorab and just leave him at level 50 and he can do a good amount of work for you, you know, if you're not planning on using him in other areas of the game, of course. A Husk you're almost always going to want to take up to max, especially if you pull him in the first, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 months of your account or something. This guy's crazy as hell. So the A1, chance of placing provoke, fine. The A2, here we go, man. Attack all enemies, chance of placing stun debuff for 1 turn, and this is bookable up to, I believe, a 60% chance of placing the stun debuff on a 4-turn cooldown. Very good indeed against waves, but dude, most important thing, damage inflicted is proportional to enemy max HP. The damage is based on enemy max health, meaning that your Husk is not just useful into faction wars, but also, how is he only a 4.8 in Hydra, dude? Surely he's one of the best epics in the game against Hydra. Yeah, he just does a crap load of damage to any kind of max health vulnerable enemy. Spider, Hydra. In fact, for some reason, he's rated a 3.7 against Hydra, dude. He can hit the Spider for like hundreds of thousands of damage. I mean, obviously, he's no Cold Heart, you know, because Cold Heart also has the 10 meter reduction as well, but still, feels like he's better than a 3.7. Either way, man, you're going to be maxing out Husk into Hydra. He's great in faction wars as well. He's got to be my pick for the Undead Hordes. Next up, man, Demon Spawn. Man, this one's a little bit tough. This one's a bit tough. I mean, you've got great Demon Spawn. Allure, is she any good into faction wars? She does have a double hitter with a chance of placing the weak version of decreased defense. Obviously, she's fantastic into Fire Knight. That's what she's for. Dur is also a reviver, and so he's going to do an amazing amount of work for you as well if you pull him. Magna is a great nuker. And even so, Soldering Command. I think my pick is going to be one of the stun set epics. I think I've got to go with good old Nazana, man. Yeah, Nazana just bringing insane survivability. Put her in the stun set. She has an attack all on the A1, which is great. The A3 is also an attack all with a 75% chance bug to placing strong decrease attack, so even more survivability coming to the team. And it's all topped off by the A2, which is an ally protect on all allies and a shield buff on Nazana herself for a couple of turns. And so, yeah, survivability central. I feel like Nazana is just too much of a control queen to ignore for faction wars. Is she kind of specific to faction wars and wave content? Probably, but I'm going to make her my pick anyway just to be a hipster. Next up, we move on to the Orcs. We're blasting through these now, boys. Got a couple of amazing reviver options in the Orcs in the form of Tagore and Yorg. Both definitely worth a mention. I do have Yorg myself, of course. I'm going to eventually be leveling up to 50 and probably leaving him at 50 just to be a reviver for faction wars purposes. I think that there's really no contest here, though. When it comes to an epic champ that can really do a lot for you in lots of areas of the game, but especially faction wars, it's got to be good old Duck the Pierced. Double hitter with decreased accuracy, strong version on his A1, which is sweet. Attack all on the A2 with just a 1,000,000,000% chance of placing decreased attack and decreased defense as long as he crits. And so he can be quite expensive to build out, but you know what? It's worth it to place 2 such incredibly strong debuffs in one single skill. And then to top it all off, if that wasn't enough already, man, he brings some big provokes on the A3, bookable down to a 4-turn cooldown. Place a provoke debuff for 1 turn on the target enemy. Also has a chance of placing provoke debuff for 1 turn on 2 other random enemies. Oh my god, then a bit of a reflect damage buff and unkillable on himself as well, which is just nuts. Yeah, Duke the Pierced does a lot, so much control, so many debuffs. Yeah, just such a versatile champ. The kind that you're going to want to max out anyway for lots of different areas of the game too. Ooh, and before somebody calls out Trumbo, actually. Dude, is this actually the best visually designed epic in the game? Bloody Trumbo, man. I almost want to call him out just for that, man. Like, whether he's good or not, it's irrelevant when a champ looks this good. Unlike Yorg, by the way, what is going on with Yorg's fingers, man? Can anybody tell me what is going on with these fingers, dude? Oh god, okay, but let's move on from the Orcs, dude. Who's up next, man? Good old Skinwalkers, okay. Skinwalkers I actually think are quite simple. As far as the epics go, they're kind of lackluster, to be honest. I mean, both is okay, the new epics that was added into the game. Fane is very single target, like, damage, like boss killer style champ. I think that the pick for the epics would probably just be Hofferes, so you have just a nice, good, reliable reviver. Hofferes is just good at that. As for the rare champs, I think that Nalhorn is honestly worth a shout out here as well. Very, very accessible in the fact that, dude, hang on, man, it's a rare champ. It's like one of the only rare champs that I don't have for Skinwalkers is bloody Nalhorn, dude. How about that, man? Well, there you go. Yeah, Nalhorn brings a provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn on a 3-turn cooldown. A little bit of increased defense on himself as well, which is great. Also brings an unkillable buff on himself too. Very, very simple champion, but you know what? What he does well, he does with excellence, and that's why Nalhorn is definitely worth a mention and is, yeah, just super worth building out. Okay, man, Lizard Men, we cooking on gas, boys. First of all, shout out to good old Broadmoor, even though he is a Void epic and so he's not super accessible, which is, you know, we're trying to make that the theme of the video. He is, of course, acquirable via a fusion, and so, therefore, I think that he's worth a mention as one of your reviver options, and if you can't be bothered just to do the Broadmoor fusion, which, I don't know, man, maybe you're like me and just lazy as hell, then you can also just pick up Haruspex as well. Again, it is a Void rare, so you have to need a little bit of luck while pulling your Void Shards to grab him, but a rare reviver champ for the Lizard Men that is worth a mention. Aox is definitely worth a shout out as well. It's just a very support style Lizard Men champ. Worth building out, but I think that Qui-Gon has got to be the pick, right? Just got to be. Brings heals and shields on his A2, and then brings a very versatile buff on his A3 that adapts based on what kind of champion it's buffing, right? So if it's buffing a champ whose attack is higher than their defense, so your nukers, they get perfect veil and increased attack. And if it's buffing, for example, one of your provoke tanks, okay? Or maybe your support champs who have higher defense than attack, then they get block debuffs and increased defense instead. Just so versatile. I think that Qui-Gon has probably got to be the shout out there. I mean, there's really good champs here as well that I'm not mentioning too, but specifically for Faction Wars, I think I'm pretty content with those, men. Okay. Ogryn Tribes, man, we're on the home straight, boys. First of all, honorable mention to good old Bellower, just an amazing wave control champ in a stun set, definitely worth mentioning. Shatterbones is a guy worth looking at as well. One of you guys actually mentioned in the comments that there's a mistake in his tooltip for his A2, which is worth noting as well. If you're a newer player, maybe you don't know this, like I didn't know this. Attack all enemies 3 times, has a 50% chance to decrease the turn meter by 30%. Well, it's actually a 75% chance fully booked up, right? Yeah, what I didn't know is that this is on each hit has a 75% chance to decrease the turn meter by 30%. Every hit triggers the effect. Crazy as hell that that's not included in the tooltip, but I believe it does work that way, at least if the comment section on that video, a few videos back, is to be trusted. So yeah, Shatterbones is one that is worth pointing out. I think the obvious one to kind of highlight here is going to be Ugo, right? Brings the revive potential, brings a lot of healing, brings some solid debuffs as well. Just a very solid support champ overall. He's the obvious pick. I think I'm going to go ahead and lean towards Grush instead, just to make it different. You know, Grush is a login reward champ. You get him quite late on. I can't quite remember how long it is, but it's quite a while. But if by the time you get Grush the Mangler, you are still struggling with your Ogryn Tribes faction crypts, right? And you still haven't maxed them out yet, this can be a champ that you build out and he just does a little bit of everything to help get you through, right? So he brings Leech on the A1, which is great, just kind of like extra healing across the rest of your team. The A2 is an attack all enemies with a bookable up to a 100% chance of placing decreased attack and decreased crit damage debuff for a couple of turns. So sweet, brings that. And then on the A3, attack all enemies, place a continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns, then an additional weak version of continuous heal for 1 turn if at least one enemy is crit. Basically brings a hell of a lot of healing, decreased attack, good support skills, not bad damage. Grush the Mangler. Is he in any way comparable in terms of quality to Ugo? Probably not, and let's be real, Ugo is the real pick here, but I'm tired of spotlighting Ugo, dude. Next up we have Barbarians, man. Great nukers in here as well, man. We've got Alika, who's definitely worth mentioning. Almost everybody's going to have a level 60 high Katoon, so I kind of don't want to call her out as well, but yeah, she's obviously going to be a great addition to any Barbarian Faction Wars team. You've also got some amazing rage quality champions as well in the Barbarians faction. You can take War Maiden up to even just level 50. Decreased defense, very reliable indeed. That's great. Sentinel isn't bad. Soulborn Boy is one of the best stun set champions in the game. I think my picks are probably going to be between, let's start off with good old Hoskarul, just the stun god, attack all enemies, 75% chance bug to placing a stun debuff for 1 turn, decrease the 10 meters of enemies under stun debuffs by 15%. crazy as hell, just immense wave control coming out of this guy. And as if that wasn't enough, he also on his passive increases the damage inflicted by all allies by 15% when attacking enemies under stun debuffs. Just amazing wave control champion. Great into PvP as well, you know, you can find a lot of use there too. And a champ I just didn't even realize existed for the longest time that I think is also worth a shout out. Just a great epic reviver, Jamarsa. She looks insanely awesome too. Again, it's one of those champs worth building just because of how insanely sweet she looks. Yeah, she brings a revive all dead allies on the A3 on a 5-turn cooldown. Quite solid as far as epic champions go. On her passive, which is also really interesting, whenever an ally uses an active skill, 20% chance of decreasing the cooldown of that skill by 1 turn. And if you fully book this skill, it has no cooldown and can just hypothetically proc like 4 times before like the turn gets back to Jamasa. That's crazy as hell, dude. Besides that, she has a chance to place a sleep on her A1, bit of 10 meter fill, bit of healing as well on the A2. Just a great all-round support champ. I think mostly because of the revive and the passive though, to be honest. Sacred Order. This one's gonna be real easy, man. I feel like, dude, Sacred Order has so many epic champs and like so many of them aren't good. So many of them are just kind of like, I mean, Mordecai's in there as well. But for Faction Wars, really, nah, man. It's gotta be good old Deacon Armstrong. Who else, you know? Brings Leech on the A1. Decreased defense on the A2, strong version, and then I believe 10 meter fill and reduction on the A3 as well. 310 cooldown grants an extra 10, so it's reducing the cooldown of his A2 as well if you lead in with that. Yeah, just a nutty old man that is well worth building out. I do have him on my account too, and I am looking forward to building out good old Deacon. Okay, man, onto the high elves. Man, I'm halfway tempted to cover Royal Guard here, but I'm not going to do it. I do have him almost fully maxed up on my account now. He's doing a great job for me. As far as Faction Wars go, though, probably not the most amazing. Tyrell is great in the early game. Decreased attack on his A1, decreased defense on his A2 on an attack all. Yeah, Tyrell is great in the early game. I think I've got to go ahead, however, and spotlight Skuramis. I mean, this guy's just an absolute juggernaut and a madman. Let's go for the A2 first. Attacks all enemies, decrease the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn. Also has a good chance, 75% I believe, of placing decreased attack debuff for a couple of turns. And yeah, also gets some 10 meter fill as well if he impacts any enemy buffs. So just a pretty solid A2 overall. Then we're going to move on to his A3. We're just going to get back to the A1 later. 100% chance of placing provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn on a 3-turn cooldown. That's already extremely good. Then place counterattack and a 15% continuous heal buff on this champion for 2 turns. Why is the counterattack so important? Dude, so he provokes, everybody's hitting into him while he has counterattack, so he counterattacks in right after soaking up that provoke hit. Well, the A1 attacks one enemy, okay, has a 90% chance booked as stealing 15% of the target's turn meter. But what if they don't have any turn meter because they've just attacked into him, right? While they were provoked? Has a 20% chance or 30% chance booked of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn if the target's turn meter is fully depleted by this skill. And so, dude, he is just throwing stuns out left, right, and center, dude. Just insane control in this guy, right? Because then, you're applying the provoke, and then you have that follow-up chance to land the stun as well. And then between all that, you're also decreasing enemy attack. Dude, when it comes to controlling waves, as far as epic champs goes, Skuramis is well up there with the best. And finally, that brings us on to Banner Lords. I think it's really between 2 here, though there's some really good ones, man. Archmage Helmet is obviously well up there. Fearmonger is definitely not there. Get that guy in the bin. Actually pulled like 4 of those suckers, man. Good old Stag Knight, I suppose, is like the obvious choice. Brings decreased speed on his A1, attack all enemies, then decrease defense and decrease attack on the A2. Both just 2 amazing buffs, or debuffs. And yeah, I mean, that Stag Knight, extremely simple but effective. I think that Gisgard the Sigiled is probably going to be the man that I would lean to slightly above Stag Knight, maybe. God, I don't know, man. It's really tough for Faction Wars, right? It depends on your team and what you're lacking, I suppose. But it brings decreased attack on the A1, brings an AoE provoke at a 75% land rate on the A2, and then places a shield buff on this champ for 25% of his max HP, which is great. Increase defense and increase attack buff on all allies for a couple turns on the A3 as well. Oh god, and he's also got a little bit of 10 meter fill as well when they're attacked by an enemy under provoke or increase attack buff. They're almost always going to be under provoke. Dude, this guy is great, man. I think this guy is... I would go for this guy if I had to pick ahead of Stagnite, personally, for Bannerlord's Faction Wars, man. I think that Giscard is the man. And we did it. Do you agree with my picks? Probably not. You probably disagree on like half of them. If you do disagree with them, then make sure to comment what you would go instead for certain factions down below. For now, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you all did enjoy this one. Remember, if you're looking to start a fresh new raid account, do so by clicking on my promo link down below at the top of the video description box to kickstart that fresh, new, juicy account with a free copy of Rected Wrath as soon as your account hits level 25. For now, do enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm going to catch all of you all just a tad bit later, man.